You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Politics took a backseat when people's lives were in danger this week as an EF3 strength tornado twisted, churned, and ripped its way through homes in Taylorville and across central Illinois. Our reporters were there all week talking to people who lost their homes and the Good Samaritans who pitched in to help them pick up the pieces.
Can't believe how much is destroyed.
Devastating. I mean, it makes you want to cry, you know. And they have nothing now, nothing.
It's just like a nightmare to wake up out of.
This is my town. So you just hate to see people hurt. And there's a lot of people right now, you know, a lot of heartache. A lot of people have been there their whole life and it's gone.
It's very hard.
We turn now to our Reporters Roundtable. Crystal Thomas from the State Journal-Register and Raquel Martin join us after both visiting Taylorville this week. First of all, what do we know about just the latest updates with the people there, the status, the toll? What can you tell us about what people have gone through this last week or so?
Well, more than 500 homes have either been wrecked or completely destroyed. I think there was 34 completely destroyed, and then 21 people were injured and sent to the hospital, but only a handful of them are still there getting help.
And it's shocking to see so many people affected, but to each individual person, this was their life. This was where they lived. What were some of the, when you met these people, what were they feeling? What were they going through? And it's just something that you don't expect to happen to you.
Well, so I talked to the Red Cross shelter manager, and she's seen a lot of disasters. Her home was destroyed as well. Her garage was destroyed. There was wreckage. But one thing she said about a lot of victims about these disasters, what she was seeing, is that a lot of people right now are in shock. She called it geared up, in that they're moving from place to place. They're trying to clean up the debris. They're trying to figure out what to do next, but they really haven't come to terms with the devastation yet. You know, there's going to be a lot of months after this in which people are going to think, I was living my life normally on Saturday. You know, I was going to the store, I was sitting in my living room, watching TV, living a completely normal life, and then minutes later, you know, a day later, I have no home.
Mm-hmm. It comes so swiftly, and so many people are displaced. Some are living with family, others maybe in hotels, trying to find their way. In moments like these, I think it's important that public officials and some of us remind folks that may be affected to keep receipts, the small little things that maybe you would otherwise forget, but if there's something that you pay for, these things, insurance companies or through aid later on can be reclaimed and recovered. And it seems like those things would easily fall through the cracks.
Right.
When so much else is falling down around you.
The Christian County Emergency Management Director, Mike Cruz, he's also the Taylorville Fire Chief. He said for people to especially keep those receipts just in case, on the chance that there is some kind of federal aid that comes through, so that people can keep track of what they're spending, and that way if the state, Christian County does
qualify for that.
Qualify for federal aid, and that might take months to figure out. If they do, they can get some of that money back, possibly.
Yeah, at this point, there's a lot of surveying the damage still left to be done as people are counting and evaluating all of what really happened. We also know that people weren't just helping neighbors, but people from around the state. We heard stories that people were traveling to Taylorville specifically for the purpose of just helping out. What were some of those stories? Can you share any moments with us of people that were helping a neighbor or helping someone else out there?
Well, they have hundreds of volunteers just in the area going door to door. Plenty of times I was interviewing a victim and volunteers were coming by, dropping off food, dropping off water, just talking to people. I was driving down the street once and a woman whose home had been wrecked was there just helping an elderly couple clear off some of the debris. She said she just saw them there alone. They were older, she called for help, and you could see her frantically trying to clear off the debris for them. She said a church had come by and did the same for her, and she just wanted to pay it forward. She says she's been reevaluating, you know, her life and values, and seeing people, strangers, come to her and help her has really put things in perspective.
Yeah.
There were so many volunteers that at one point the emergency management team said, you know, we don't have the resources right now to manage all of these volunteers. Right now what we want is people who are trained, and we don't have to really supervise, because we don't want a disaster within a disaster. We don't want people getting hurt.
Right.
At the same time, though, there were a lot of people who were just pulling out wood, pulling out debris, putting things on the curbs. Because
just the grunt labor.
Just the grunt labor, because there's just so much cleanup that needs to be done. There were people handing out cleaning supplies, brooms, going door to door, neighbors helping neighbors. I met people not only, in Taylorville, like you said, helping each other, but people from the surrounding central Illinois community. I met a couple of guys with skid steers from Greenville. I met someone from Chatham and Springfield who just went to the Red Cross shelter because they said, we want to help. Mm-hmm. We don't know what to do, we want to help, and if that means serving a plate of food or saying a kind word that people might need in that time, we'll do whatever it takes.
What a testament to the fiber of the community that could tell these people who just lost their homes, you still haven't lost your neighbors, and that they were there to help them. That was rather heartwarming. What are some things that people at home who might not be able to make the trip, but if they see this and they want to help out, what are ways that people at home can do that?
Well, city officials are stressing monetary donations. As much as they would like to get clothes and food, they're saying at the end of the day, these people need money, and if they need clothes, they can use that money to purchase clothes or purchase food. Right now, they're trying to have everyone donate to the missions in Taylorville. It's connected to the U.S. Bank, and it is a verified way to make sure that that money is used in the right way so that people can get on their feet.
And you can send those donations like Raquel said. Missions for Taylorville is, you can mail checks to City Hall in Taylorville saying Missions for Taylorville, care of City Hall. And those donations will directly go to those who were impacted by the tornado.
Well, and thank you both for your work on the ground there, covering these stories and bringing those stories to the rest of us who couldn't make it out there, and to all the other reporters that were there. It's a public service that you guys were doing. Also, we try to shine a light on interesting or good journalism every once in a while, and Crystal, you had a story that really was the talk of the town for a while. People were just fascinated by this. You uncovered something that happened here in 1962 when then President Kennedy was campaigning in Springfield, and it seems like from your article that he was possibly in harm's way.
Well, so I just want to clarify for a second that I wish I could say that I uncovered it. I wish I could say that I went to the JFK Library in Boston and found those documents, but it was actually a professor at the U.S. Naval War College who originally found a document that said when JFK was in Springfield, October 19th, 1962, when he was in his motorcade here, he was coming to stump for some Democratic candidates. And in his motorcade, he was on the way to the Lincoln Tomb to lay a wreath. Mm-hmm. There were two young men who, in a second-story window, pointed a rifle at his motorcade. And a Illinois Department of Public Safety employee saw the two men in the window, obviously a huge red flag, grabbed them, and local police arrested them, held them for Secret Service. And eventually, Secret Service declined prosecution. They weren't charged for anything.
They wanted to get a better view of the motorcade through the lens, they said.
Yes, that's what they said. Their explanation was that they were looking through the scope of the rifle, and they were deciding whether, when JFK came back through, if it was worth it to take the scope off and look through it at the motorcade.
What a funny way to do that.
Yes.
And especially given, obviously there's the historical connection to what happened, but also you connected this, you did not name the person, but one of those two teenagers is now an older man and still lives in Springfield.
Yes, he was 16 at the time. He's much older now. I tracked him down to his house here in I tracked him down. To the area. And I knocked on his door because I really wanted to know, everyone wants to know what was going through your mind when you thought, hey, maybe I should point a rifle at the president.
A presidential motorcade.
Yes, presidential motorcade. And I just wanted to know, what his experience was like, what his motivations were, things like that. So I knocked on his door and I said, "Hi, I'm a reporter with the State Journal-Register, and you know, did you try to assassinate the president in 1962?" And he said, "You know, no, I was not trying to assassinate the president." And I handed him the document, the unclassified brief that kind of described the situation, and he didn't want to talk much. She basically read it and said, "You know, you have a story here, go with it," and kind of grabbed his mail and closed the door.
And you had a story, and you went with it.
Yep.
Very interesting, and I think you also noted, as you talked to some professors and some historians, that this was a very crucial time in foreign policy. The president was under a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Later withdrew from that campaign trip, citing a cold, and sort of retreated
Fake
in a way. Later, we learned it was not actually a cold, but maybe an excuse.
Yes.
And so it's interesting. We often say that journalism is the first draft of history, but sometimes it's just as valuable to go back and unearth and add to the history we already knew. So congratulations on that story, really interesting. And I know a lot of people were talking about it, so I wanted to hear from you. Thanks for coming to share that with us. Raquel and Crystal, thanks for joining us. We'll be right back in just a moment.